Hi, I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast, Different Thinking for Different Times. The goal of my podcast is to help people raise their consciousness above their little thinker, their little voice, that insidious voice, the what I call the acorn brain. I have it on my shirts, but I also have acorns on my desk to remind me. And the little brain, fascinating how it works, that story. Dr. James Doty, in his book Mind Magic, talks about if you think of the brain, 100% of the brain, in this way, and he goes on to say 10% of our brain is what we need to live every day. And it takes care of driving, washing, right? We get up in the morning, we have a schedule. We have habits that we do in terms of a routine. Some people anyway, maybe it's the same thing for breakfast. I don't know. But you have 90% of the brain remaining. And he said, think of it this way. He makes it simple. That's why I love part of his work. Fascinating, right? In the book Mind Magic, he breaks down the second half of the book in very granular and metaphysical ways. So the remaining 90%, he says, think of it this way. 45% or half of it is the unconscious mind, which we need to grow our nails, grow our hair for some of us, pump our blood, replace our skin cells, replace our blood cells, rejuvenate our organs, because every 7 years we're totally a different person. And every year our skin cells are replaced. So he said, that's done automatically. Do you have to think about, pumping your blood? Oh, oh, oh. Do you have to think about breathing or blinking your eyes or watering your eyes, digesting your food? That's half of the remaining 90%. He said, so the balance, the remaining 45%, he said, think of it this way. I love this because it's so simple. You have a file system and a bloodhound. Whatever you put in the file system, he goes on to say, the bloodhound immediately goes into action to find evidence that it's true. It goes searching for evidence to prove it's true, despite any evidence to the contrary. So that's why it's so important to think about what you put into your mind and what you believe, too, that your brain suggests about you. So many people believe that they're less than others, maybe even more than others. They can't do certain things. That's not me. Get over it. I'm who I am. That's not true. The brain can be stretched. But here's the difference. We have to develop a level of thinking above our thinking and decide where you're going to run the mind. George Ivanovich Gurdjieff in the early 1900s had a whole program in France at the Priere, and he had it in New York City. He had programs where he would talk to people about that voice. He called it the machine. Will you let the machine run you, or will you run it? He would ask. And he had various exercises challenging the mind, challenging the body to do things physically in different ways to make the brain uncomfortable. He did that with ritual and dance and music. Rainer Maria Rilke, I wrote about it in my book, in fact, Sage Advice. Here, I'll show you this is all marked up because I use certain quotes. Sage Advice, it's available on Amazon. Wisdom for Living from Throughout the Ages. Rainer, in my research, said he named that voice, and he called it, in the 1800s, the little hooligan. He would ask the same question. Will you let the little hooligan run you, or will you run it? That's where most people are missing the mark. They believe they're thinking, and small-minded thinking. So this podcast is about expanding from small-minded thinking to limitless thinking, infinite thinking, which, by the way, models the universe. And the creator of a universe, by the way, is not mired in small-minded thinking. That's humans. We have the hubris to think, and the ego to think that we think like God. And then we make all these judgments and pronouncements, and we want people to live a certain way. In fact, for thousands of years, we've killed people because we didn't agree with them. We didn't agree with their religion. In some stories, even until today, the same religions are fighting. I mean, think how long the Catholics and Protestants fought until modern times. They had the same belief, Shias and Sunnis fighting for thousands of years. The Abrahamic religions, Muslim, Judaism, and Christianity, they're all rooted in the same tree, or the tree has the same roots, called Abraham. I had a near-death experience, November 18th, 2002. I was in intensive care. If you've listened to this podcast, you know I often share that experience. I can tell you that this acorn brain, this small-minded thinker, doesn't go with us. And if we all had a peak, we wouldn't be so petty, not before this podcast ends. And guess what? You can model the limitless creator, whatever you call it, God, the goddess, the divine, the Abraham, the Muhammad, the Christ consciousness, the Krishna, the Buddha. It doesn't matter what you call it, at least in my experience. That upsets a lot of people because they want to be right. That is the illness that humanity has, wanting to be right and making so many others wrong, even willing to kill them. Now, the chaos and the contrast here in this world, in this existence, this temporary physical existence. By the way, when I say temporary, it's taken 13.8 billion years to get to this point. Michael Singer writes about that in his book, The Surrender Experiment, that we don't often think that it's taken 13.8 billion years to get here. We're going to live 80, 90, maybe 100. Maybe in the future we'll get to 110, 120, 130 because people are living to 115. However long we live, the energy of the universe has been creating new things and expanding things beyond our imagination, by the way. If you pay attention to what the Hubble and the James Webb telescopes are discovering, including some observations too that are observatories that are here on Earth. Think about what they're still discovering. We don't know about this amazing miracle we live in. It's a miracle, right? That all that's required for life is here. And yet we engage in such small-minded thinking. And the way the file system that Dr. James Doty talks about, the way it works, it's based on confirmation bias. We put something in our file system. We want to be right. Our bloodhound goes off finding proof that we are right, despite any evidence to the contrary. So that's why it's very important that you manage your mind and learn that you can. One of my new books, I have another one coming out this week, in fact, but this I wrote in July. No BS coaching. Wake up from the BS story you tell yourself. We're telling ourselves BS stories all day long. And then the bloodhound goes out to prove we're right. We do it in relationship. We do it with bosses. We do it about ourselves. We do it at the supermarket. We're not going to wait in a stupid line. Or with a customer service person who didn't create your circumstance. You're a victim of the circumstance if you're shouting at people who had nothing to do with whatever you're going through. Masters of circumstance, they know they're responsible for what's manifesting. They're creating it with their thinking. Now, you can say that's not true. I've been thinking about great things all my life and nothing's come to manifest, Steve. What reaches you was never meant to miss you, and what misses you was never meant to reach you. Maybe you're hanging on to something that's not yours because you're believing your brain that you're entitled to something. What people miss is that life itself is actually guiding you. And it's to come to the idea that life is a friend, to embrace life. In Romans, Paul said that Christ said everything works together for good for those that believe in God and the Father. Now, I have it in my book, Sage Advice, which I just showed you. Here, I'll show it to you again. Sage Advice. It's on Amazon. There's fascinating sages in here that have been talking about that little small-minded thinker for thousands and thousands of years. And we've yet to learn anything. I mean, fast forward to the United States, where our elections have pitted the country into two sides, each one making each other wrong. It's called a monologue instead of a dialogue. When we listen to that little voice in our head, it's a monologue, which, by the way, is defined as the story we tell ourselves. A dialogue is a jointly created reality, which is what we need to do as humans, and we'll make our own lives more enjoyable. We're the ones creating misery. The Buddha says desire is the root of all suffering. So if you can just come to embrace life as a friend and embrace what shows up instead of railing against it or lamenting something that hasn't yet appeared, but to think that, hey, everything works together for good, or what reaches me was never meant to miss me, and what misses me was never meant to reach me, then you just be in the moment. And then have a dialogue with people that you disagree with or you think are wrong about something. Shirzad Shamin said in his book Positive Intelligence and in his PQ program called the Positive Quotient, 10% of what somebody said must be right. We're not even willing to do that in most cases as humans. Talk about small-minded thinking. But think about this for a moment. This is what I continue to bring up in my podcast. Do you think that what created a universe is a small-minded thinker? Fine if you do. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. In my near-death experience, that's not what I experienced. You can listen to other episodes, go back and hear more about my near-death experience, or buy any of my books. The No BS Coaching that I wrote in July points out many examples of the BS stories we all tell ourselves. Those who got fired at work, or those whose mate and spouse left them and divorced them and took everything from me. It's not true. What's true is life is trying to wake you up to the power you have to create. When you take accountability and just start asking, well, wait a minute, how did I create this mess? What is it here to teach me? How can I learn and grow and become a better person from this mess? When you start taking that approach, you will discover the gifts and the lessons in those experiences, and you'll discover something else. If you have the power to create those messes, which you do, once you take accountability for them and responsibility for them, you realize you have the power, that same power, used in a positive way, where that person runs the machine or the little hooligan to create, working backwards from the end in mind. You have the power to create whatever you want, whatever you desire, as long as it's your purpose and passion in this world. I have a book coming out the end of the year that's been written for a year, just doing some tweaking and a few other things, but it's ready to go now in plain sight. Learn to see what most people miss and embrace life as it is, as a friend. Life is giving you feedback. And when you're railing against it, you're missing the lesson. Like Eckhart Tolle says, when you fight life, life fights you. Wayne Dyer used to say, what you resist persists. I think many people have said it over the thousands of years. And what we're resisting is the lesson. When we want to have the BS story and claim we're the victim, you want to hear what happened to me today? You want to hear what happened to me last week? You want to hear what my spouse did? My ex-spouse? My boss? You want to hear? It's a BS story. Wouldn't it be fascinating to go to your local tavern and say, you want to hear what a mess I created? And how my thinking, I realized my thinking created this mess because I was making everyone wrong. And here's what I learned. I don't think anybody would buy you a drink for that. Most people go to those places so they can lament in their woe, their tale of woe is me. I want this podcast to raise the consciousness of one person. That's my goal. A few people have actually emailed me. In fact, a few people that bought the book, No BS Coaching. It was published in July. August. I wrote it in July. The idea came to me, and I put it on paper. I offer all the examples of how we can be stuck in the woe is me. It's just going to create more of that. Joe Dispenza talks about the quantum field. And in the quantum field, whatever gets fed grows. But by the way, think about that in life. If you stop feeding your cat or stop leaving food for the squirrels, what doesn't get fed withers and dies. So what you're feeding in your mind is what you're manifesting. So I'm encouraging you to prove this to yourself, that as you change what you're feeding in your mind, be patient, give it some time. How, by the way, how and how fast are not your job. Keep reprogramming your mind. Now, 2 weeks ago, Monday, I got an idea on my walk for a title for a book, How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon. It's a kind of play on How to Train Your Dragon movie. The subtitle is Program Your Mind for Success. Sunday, a week ago Sunday, I woke up at 3 a.m. with the whole book in my head, and I finished it Friday last week. How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon. Now, where I got the dragon part is I'm a dragon in Chinese mythology or astrology. I was born in the year of the dragon, 1952. So I thought, let me give people some ideas about how to program their mind, to program your mind for success. But you have to prove this to yourself. I'm not here to convince anybody. I don't even do that in my coaching or my trainings. I want people to come to their own conclusions. Never follow anyone or anything blindly. I wrote that in my books. You might be full of shit if. And then when Amazon wouldn't publish it, I didn't get angry. I just wrote the next weekend, you might be full of number 2. After all, we know better. What life sends me, I go with it. Now, I was 50 before I learned that by nearly dying, my near-death experience. I realized, as John Maxwell says, it was time to get over myself, that I was full of shit somewhere. And I had readily admit that in the 2 books that I just mentioned. The choice is up to you to get over yourself. Get off the tale you tell others and yourself, what I call the woe is me tale. Get off it. My dogs are coming in to say hello. They want you to wake up, as Gurdjieff said. George Ivanovich Gurdjieff also talked about, it's as if we live in a mansion. Albie, no. It's as if we live in a mansion and we only occupy the first floor. Look at Albie wants you to wake up. He barked right after we were talking about that. I love my doggies. They're so in the moment. I have a cat too. Last year, in fact, I had 3 cats and 4 dogs. Sadly, some have departed for what's next. But in a universe, physicists will tell you that energy cannot be destroyed. So humans who don't believe in something after, which I now call death, what's next, if you don't believe in what's next, that's okay. You're going to discover it anyway, despite your own little acorn brain not believing in anything, because energy cannot be destroyed. It's transformed. So think about getting on the journey of training your mind, you becoming the master of circumstance instead of the victim of circumstances. Come, Albie. It's not time to go there yet. I'll let you know. So you become a master of circumstance and do the work. Now, How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon, is now on Amazon, the hardcover, and the Kindle version. The paperback will be up probably tomorrow. If you need to reach me, I'm glad to give you a 2-hour coaching for free. Email me, I'll show you the book name so it's easy, and my name is on the screen, Steve Lentini, steve@stevelentini.com. If you go to Amazon and Google books by Steve Lentini, you'll find all my books. I don't want you to buy anything. Albie, come on, good boy. I don't want you to buy anything. I'll give you a free coaching. If you decide we're a fit for coaching, fine. Albie wants some coaching. So here's what I tell you to do. Consider this. Ponder this. Give me a second. You know what? I'll let him out. Hold on, Albie. Come on, bud. What reaches me was never meant to miss me. Okay. Thank you for indulging me, folks. So I'll give you a free coaching to help you because that's what I'm doing in this world. That's my purpose, to help people overcome small-minded thinking, not to change the masses, but to help you individually change and program your mind for success. It's possible. I'm proof. I've got some clients for over 20 years. One is going to be 25 years next year. Another's going to be 21 years. Many for 8, 10, 12, 15 years. Why? They're continuing to push beyond what this acorn brain suggests. This self-limiting voice that says you're not worthy, that reminds you of every mistake, embarrassment, humiliation, errors in judgment that you've made over your lifetime. It does that because it has that advantage over you. There's a gift in it. Do you know why it keeps reminding you of every place you've fallen? So that you can wake up one day and say, wait, that was 20 years ago. That's a lie. I learned something from it. Here's what I learned. And you, Mr. Voice, I caught you. And you celebrate it. You go, I caught you, little voice. And it's not true. It was necessary for me to learn and grow. And then you'll notice the volume of that voice goes down. You could enroll in a 6-week program with me for PQ, Positive Intelligence, the Positive Quotient program, the PQ program. I have programs available for groups or for not-for-profits that offer the program at a special rate. Again, you reach out to me, Steve at Steve Lentini. I'll show you the book again. Steve at Steve Lentini. Wake up. No BS coaching. Wake up from the BS you tell yourself. And then I'll work with you on the book, How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon. There's a whole process in there. You can do it yourself. If you'd like a coach, I'm available, and there's plenty of coaches. I have a lot of other coaches as well that can help and are glad to help. It's what we do, helping people. I'm going to give you the first tip. If you're seeking outside validation, titles, status, cars, being an author, a job title, if you're living from what I call the outside in, you'll never be happy. Because that's a little voice. That's that brain saying, I'll be satisfied when. Think about that. I'll be satisfied when. When? Yeah, when? It's a question. It's just to be happy every day waking up. Since November 18th, 2002, I live every day. It's the World Series of life, I tell people, for me. Because I could have died in intensive care that day. And I was grateful for the whole experience, but that's a story for another day. Today, I want you to consider becoming the master of your circumstances and letting go of your woe is me stories. Because guess what? Every time you tell that story, you're programming your mind for more of that. What you feed grows. So I'm going to help you leave behind feeding the BS and let's get to what you really want. And I can help you discover your purpose in life through some of your messes if you share them with me. And some of the places that your brain limited you or tried to tell you you weren't worthy, you weren't good enough, or you'll never be a CEO, or you'll never be a painter or an author, or those voices lie. And I can tell you, because I live it. I still work on it every day. I go to the neuro gym. Would you go to the physical gym once a month and expect a workout that would benefit your body? The neuro gym, by the way, you could do 15 minutes a day at different times. A few minutes in the morning, a few minutes midday, a few minutes in the early afternoon, a few minutes at night. Bingo, you got 15 minutes of going to the neuro gym, exercising your mind. And neurophysicists are proving for people that do that, they open new neural pathways. With fMRIs, they prove it. Joe Dispenza's proven it. Dr. Shirzad Chamine has proven it. Not sure he's a doctor. Shirzad Chamine. He wrote the book Positive Intelligence. I have it here, but I can't dig it out because I got too many books I'm reading. You wouldn't brush your teeth once a month or twice a month? You wouldn't go to the physical gym and expect a result that you could see in your body by going once a month. You can train your brain. I'm here to help. I'm glad to help. I'll get you on a do-it-yourself regimen if you want. Now I'm forming groups online. I have groups online. You can join my group coaching or you can join individual coaching. All that's up to you. You can do it yourself. I'm urging you to. Buy my new book, How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon. It's on Amazon. Buy the book, No BS Coaching. A lot of the ideas are in here. Steve at Steve Lentini. Let me hold it so you can see it. Steve at stevelentini.com. I want you to wake up to what's possible in your life and leave behind the addiction to woe is me. Because that story is programming your mind for more of that story. Don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Reach out to me. I'm glad to help. And with that, we're going to head out. I'm grateful. Steve at stevelentini.com. I wish you, the master of your circumstances, success in life. And I know, by the way, when you decide to be happy, this is your first tip. Just decide to be happy and let go of that. I'll be satisfied when this happens or that happens. Just get up every day and be grateful you're alive. Say a few things you're grateful for and get on with creating what you really want. Just think, if 10% of the world improved by managing their mind, what a world it would be, because there'd be plenty for others to spare and share and plenty of examples for others to learn from. It would make an amazing difference, but I just want one of you to get on the journey. And I'm glad to help, like I said. Thank you.